$39 trillion of debt is absolutely crazy. It's out of this world. And that's how much debt the United States has incurred. Most of this is just coming within the last few decades. Today, we're going to talk about the reason we have all this debt, but we're also going to talk about some potential fixes and how we can deal with it as people. Thanks for joining us, and let's get started with Sasquatch Talk. Hello and welcome to Sasquatch Talk. My name is Bradley Valentine. We have Troy Miller at the top right of your screen, Dan Adams, aka Silly Goober, at the bottom of your screen.
Also known as Dan the Man.
Yep. This is episode 19. It's been a couple weeks. We just had some scheduling conflicts, but we're back and we're excited to get fired up over this because this is something that probably should fire up everyone. Yeah. We're talking the U.S. debt, which we're just going to say it's a little over 39 trillion. We're just, for ease, we're going to say 39 trillion is the U.S. debt today. So there's a lot of different thoughts about the U.S. debt. People blaming other people, the rich, the government, whatever. We'll get into all of that. But I have for you guys a little bit of an icebreaker around the U.S. debt. So here's the scenario. Troy, you have $39.01 trillion. Let's just say that's 39 trillion and 1 billion, okay? That's what you have as your wealth. You have it cash on hand. Let's just assume the US debt is $39 trillion exactly. Would you donate that $39 trillion and keep $1 billion for yourself, that $39 trillion to the United States government to pay off the debt? I didn't even finish. You're shaking your head no.
That would be a bad investment. If when it comes to investing and you put capital to work in, if I had that 39 trillion to put to work, giving it to the government would be a bad investment. You know what I mean? I would rather live with the debt load, right? Just live with the debt load, and 39 trillion is a lot to work with. So I don't know. Maybe they could have the billion. Right, but
well, okay, Dan, I'll ask you the same question, but something to think about. If the U.S. debt just got deleted in one button, the markets would probably explode, right? Like the S&P would probably double immediately. Like the U.S. would become like a crazier superpower, whatever. Same question. You have $39 trillion, 1 billion on hand. 39 trillion, 1 billion on hand. You donate the 39, you're still left with $1 billion, which is a lot of cash. Would you do it, yes or no?
Yes, but
okay.
First I would invest, 0.9 billion.
Okay.
On everything.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah.
Right? Because then you'll be back up to 20-ish trillion after you do that.
Sure.
Plus, you'd probably get a cool statue, Yeah. that they'll just spray paint and tear down later because you made a podcast and said that, sometimes people want to be homeless or something crazy.
Then they'll review all of our previous 17 or 18 episodes and they'll be like, no, we don't want to do it.
Yeah, he had ulterior motives.
Yep.
We can't. Yeah.
Okay, Bradley, what would your response be to that same question?
It would be the same as you, Troy. I wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it?
I would if, okay, let's get into this and explain why I wouldn't do it. If you look at the current monthly budget, we're just going to look at March. And I put this in chat for you guys, but if you look at the budget, our total income for the United States for March was $385 billion. Our total expenditures or outlays, $549 billion. We are spending $94 billion on interest each month. So here's the thing. If we were to delete that 94 on interest because we're not having to pay anyone back, right? That means that we would still have a deficit. So even if you donated 39 trillion and wiped out the debt, the government's still running
Yeah.
on a deficit.
I was going to bring up that point. Even if you wiped it out, they're going to start spending more than what they're earning immediately. They would find themselves in that. It's like paying off your credit card and then going getting another credit card and maxing it out again.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
well, I don't know if I'd see it exactly because we're talking about cash on hand and paying it off, right?
Yes.
So if you were able, they wouldn't have to have government shutdown. They wouldn't have to have whatever, they actually maybe could for once do their flipping job.
Getting more money is not the motivation for that, though. We learned that from Iraq.
I know that's why
not the solution.
That's why I'm a strong proponent of any member of politics should have the median house, right? You look at the high, you look at the low across the country, across the state where they're representative, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you get.
Yeah.
You get the median of everything.
I think that's fair.
So you're saying
so
the
if you want to be in politics, you get the median income. You get
I don't think he's saying socialism because he's saying this for politicians, Troy.
Just politicians. When you hold a government office.
Bernie Sanders with his whole there shouldn't be any rich, yet he's got the 2 houses that are way above the median. That's
not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you run for public office, mayor, whatever, right? You don't get $750,000 a year to pay for your personal property stuff. You don't get that.
Yeah.
You get exactly the median housing that everyone in your congressional or representative district has. You get the median.
I like it.
If that happens to be a double wide, so be it.
I like it.
You better help the flipping people out.
Yeah. I agree.
And then transportation, same thing, right? You don't get 90 cars. You don't get an entourage, right?
You don't get to fly around on a private plane,
You
targeting
have to take
fossil fuels.
what the normal mode of travel is.
Yeah. Again, another Bernie Sanders thing.
No, it's not. Because Bernie Sanders wants everyone else to have that.
He wants us to live that way.
He wants us to live that way.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's
he's an aristocrat.
Yeah. He's a hypocrite too. He wants us all to live that way. Yet he's flying around on these private jets, owning the multifamily home or multi-million-dollar homes in several different locations.
It's funny. There was I forget what it was. It was like a list of all the times Bernie Sanders says like millionaires shouldn't exist, and it's like dates, and then he becomes a millionaire, and he changed it to billionaires. Now he says billionaires shouldn't exist. It's all about what you have, and then changing the standard or the goalpost.
Well, I think most people don't know what an everyday millionaire looks like, right? That's why a lot of people like to hate on old Dave Ramsey. But I don't like to hate on him because he's helping dispel the myth that like a millionaire means you drive a Bentley, and and you live in a $5 million house. And
well, most millionaires are people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, and they're not rich people driving around Bentleys, like you said.
No.
They're people who have accumulated that money in their 401ks or IRAs.
They're people that didn't spend more than they made.
I was going to say the debt thing probably doesn't have a lot of credit cards, doesn't have a car payment.
So let's break down this debt. Let's start with the monthly budget. And I kind of talked about how we're spending $94 billion on interest payments. That's to pay back our debt. But let's go over some of the other monthly budget payments. The number one, Troy, I'll ask you this. Do you know the number one, not the dollar amount, but what's our biggest expenditure? Do you know?
Is it the interest on the debt?
No, that's number two. Number one is Social Security.
Okay.
$139 billion. I'm going to put this on the screen for those watching on the podcast so that way everyone can see along with me. This is from the U.S. Treasury. So the number one biggest outlay expenditures is 139 billion on Social Security. Number two is our interest payments at 94 billion. Number three, Troy, can you guess number three?
That's the military.
Nope.
DoD.
Nope. Healthcare.
Healthcare, really?
That's Medicare. No, it's just straight up health. I don't know what it is because, yeah.
Because that covers like the CDC budget. It covers all the programs for like anywhere you see them, like brush your teeth or the American Dentist Association,
So
like all of those things.
We spend over 200, almost $300 billion on Medicare, healthcare, Social Security every month. Now, finally, Troy, number four is national defense at 69 billion. It's funny because you'll hear this from certain people. They'll be like, we spend too much money on national defense. That's our fourth highest expenditure. You know,
I don't know if you guys heard it. I don't know if this is going to be real, but Trump did talk about basically doubling the national defense budget to well over $1 trillion. So I don't know if it'll happen, but that's
if we doubled it. If we doubled it, it still wouldn't be our highest expenditure. That's so. Number five is income security. Number six is Medicare. Number seven is veteran benefits. And then there's general government at 14 billion, education. So here's and no one likes to hear this, but our number one expenditure is essentially health, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. People act like the US is a capitalistic society. We're not, we're not like a socialist society, but we're closer to socialism than we are to capitalism.
Yeah.
Now,
for sure.
Let's go. I'm going to bring this back on the screen for those watching. Our number one recipient, and I'll hand this over to you guys. I don't just want to talk the whole time, is individual income taxes. That's $189 billion. Number two is social insurance and retirement. So if you're listening, that's $152 billion. When you have your paycheck every month, you have federal taxes taken out, you have state taxes taken out, which is not on this chart, and then you have Social Security and Medicare. That's this number two thing, $152 billion on social insurance and retirement. Number three is the custom duties, which essentially are tariffs at $22 trillion. So I'll hand this over to you guys really quickly, but I just wanted to show everyone what it looks like. Now, one last note, about 75% of the U.S. income, so 75% of that individual income taxes comes from the top 10% richest people in the United States. The one percenters, the Wall Street takeover, they pay about 40%. So if you have I'm envious of the rich problem in your mind, know that they're essentially paying for almost everything in the U.S. government. So I want to get some talking points. Dan, I'll throw this to you. When you see our chart of income versus expenditures versus outlays, what goes on, what fires on in that Daniel Adams brain of yours?
We're not spending enough on education.
Okay. Oh,
because if we were spending more on education, people could understand what you're saying. People would be, they would be more mad about the national debt situation.
Yeah.
They would be more mad about frivolous government spending.
Mm-hmm.
They would be more mad when Congress doesn't show up to do their job.
Right.
When they parlay what they're supposed to do, right? When they, anytime any government office doesn't meet on time or doesn't hold to their stipulations, right? They'd be mad about that.
Right.
They'd also be more mad when funding goes missing and unaccounted for, and that there's not transparency in these budgets.
Sure.
You know, like
Yeah.
the fact that we can just see these few items doesn't mean that you can, because it brings to mind in Klamath Falls, they wanted to add a 2% tax for the county museum, right?
Oh
And
yeah, I remember
I'm all
that.
for it because the county museum barely had enough to pay their electricity and the plumbing and just the general upkeep of an old building in town. And like I like architecture and old buildings, and seeing the National Guard Hall that was built 200 years, or not, it's not 200 years ago, built 80 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 100. Troy, do you remember what the age is on that building down there? The
You talking
Klamath
about
County Museum.
the one on Spring Street,
Yeah.
Market Street? Yeah, down in that area.
It's 18 something, I thought.
Yeah, it's over 100 years old.
Okay. So
It
at
was
least 125.
it was a part of the original city when the city was first founded and established.
Yeah, like they used to,
plotted
like
out.
troops slept there. People complain about their sleeping conditions. They were happy to sleep inside. Like,
Sure.
Yeah.
like what? If we spent more on education, heck, if they flipped general government and education, right? And it was like 14 billion instead of 12 billion, and like they sat on 10-year-old chairs, or here's a crazy idea: you bring your own chair in, because government officials used to have two jobs, and like governing was your second job, and it was a labor of love, not a retirement plan.
Yep.
If we went back to that, just think about like they might have time to actually teach kids in school instead of being a daycare. Like there's then that would change our overall GDP.
So what you're saying is, if we increased our education, then our expenditures would go down, or our income would go up? What are you saying, Dan?
Probably both of those things, because people would be more. The ripple effect would take a while, right?
Okay.
Because we're so far behind the power curve for kids.
Okay.
That it'll take a while to realize the benefits of that.
Yeah.
We can't go back in time. We can only do with what we got now.
Yeah. Troy, what do you think of this idea of education, or do you have a different resolution to this problem?
Is the problem getting government officials to do their work, or is the problem to the solution that we're trying to find for the problem is to increase education, like quality, or is it the whole income versus expenses for the national debt?
What do you think? What do you think it is?
It's honestly, it's all probably intertwined. As far as the government official thing, the government's been trying to do too much, and so they keep asking for more tax money to continue to do more.
Yeah.
And they've been doing a very bad job at it. Like Dan was talking about, getting congressmen to show up, and the education quality is just really tanked in America. I think honestly, we should go in the opposite direction. If more government's been making things worse, then we should shrink the size of government, get rid of public service officials, and privatize the education market. I think it's the public education that's been really bad. It's the privatization private education has been a lot better. So going back to your problem, Dan, if we can convince students and parents to look at private markets, private schools, and have the government institute some sort of tax breaks, or encourage them students to go to private schools instead of maintaining this massive system of public schools that's failing over 50%, especially in the big cities.
Yeah, I like where you're headed. The problem is this: all of those buildings are money that's already been spent.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it costs more money to build newer buildings, which means more taxes on more things instead of updating an existing structure, right?
Well, that's why you
This
would
is always,
privatize it, put it on the private organization to take care of that.
yeah, but then they're going to ask for tax breaks, and like it's just going to, it's like 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's like, do you buy a new car or do you fix the one that you have?
Right.
And at some, either you're talented enough that you don't have to buy a new car and you can keep fixing the one that you have until like the frame breaks, and then you have to, you know, replace the frame. Like you have to fix whatever's broken, right?
Okay.
Fixing what's broke. We're going to turn into an education podcast on this.
Apparently so.
But the national debt stems from people being wildly uneducated about how it is.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's what I think, and Troy, tell me if okay, this is how I view the U.S. debt. I'm going to give a little bit of a allegory, if you will. The U.S. is like this household. Let's say a married couple has 5 kids, and they live in a $4 million house, which isn't necessarily as crazy as you might think. Each one of these kids has their own private ride to school that they get. They have the household has a butler, they have a maid. Both the parents have an amazing $100,000 car. They have private shoppers. The kids, you know, the kids are going to get their own cars when they turn 16. Okay, that's possible depending on your income. But the problem is the mother's a lawyer, the dad's a doctor, and their income is maybe $600,000 a year. So they're massively in debt. Is the problem that the kids aren't educated enough? Is the problem that the parents aren't making enough money? Or is the problem that they're spending too much damn money? You know, that's where my mind goes,
It's
right?
poor management. Mm-hmm.
It's, you're spending too much money.
Mm-hmm.
Now the problem, like, okay, Dan, with the education, let's say you added $5 billion a month to education. Mm-hmm. We're still spending, let me do the math real quick, 139 plus 90 plus 57. We're still spending nearly $300 billion a month on just Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all that, right? I don't know, like, don't even think about national defense. Don't even think about net interest. There's something wrong with our system if we're just throwing away hundreds of billions of dollars. Now, I know if you're listening, you're probably like, Bradley, you're out of touch. People need that money. Now, is it possible that they need the money because we've given them hundreds of billions of dollars and forced them to need it? Right? Why do they need that money? So, Dan, I know you want to jump in. Go ahead.
that Medicaid money, right? It's people see that and they think automatically that some stream of that money, whether it's $200 or let's say, like, you know, you become disabled and you need disability, right?
Yeah.
And the government's going to prop you up, right? People think that number is tied exactly to the number that goes to the disabled person.
Right.
They say, well, he gets $283 a month, right? Mm-hmm. So it says there's how many, that real cool website that we were talking about, the, you know, debt theft or whatever it is.
Lifetimetheft.com.
Yeah, so US
I'm going to
US
put that on screen for everyone to look at.
335 million, right? So if we looked up some analytics, right, that if we looked at the amount of people that got $285 a month to help them from Medicaid or Medicare, $1,200, whatever it is, right? It's not proportionate to that whole thing coming out of there because it goes into what it costs to run those places and to get that money to people, printing the checks, right? Why are we putting out the same amount for distribution of Medicaid payments when we're not printing checks anymore. And they're doing it electronically. You're telling me that electronically it costs the same amount that it does to print the checks, to buy the ink, to make the paper, to pay the artist to design the Medicaid checks, to, printing the giant presses and what it takes to run those versus the, $12,000 in computers?
Right.
Bless you. So, you know what I mean? I agree with you. Something doesn't fit. We've gone to these paperless systems so that we can pollute less. Just like dude, we talked about recycling, right? And how it's been reduce, reuse, recycle. So people put their friggin' half-drank tea bottles and their dirty milk jugs and their pizza boxes in the recycling bin, only to go to here. The separation plant hasn't had people in it, so it just goes to trash.
Right.
Like when your entire county doesn't have a place for the recyclables to get sorted, it goes to the trash, and people don't understand that. But they're happy putting it in the green bin. And that's the thing. People are happy with their dissolutions. As long as they think what they're doing is good, they feel good about having Medicare, even if it doesn't help people actually. What if instead of giving them that much money, it went into a place for gardens to grow food and encourage people to help each other and do community outreach projects and transportation for disabled folks and getting them around and having places for in the community versus just giving them money.
Okay.
I don't know. I've seen a lot in Klamath Falls. There's lots of folks on public aid. Okay. And the amount of times that I was approached to have someone give me groceries if I give them the cash because they had enough to eat, but they had enough to eat so much that they wanted me to give them the money that I earned, the cash that I earned, to pay for a government issued thing because there's an imbalance because they get too much money for the food or they don't spend it on the right things and they want the money to go buy stuff that card doesn't buy, the Oregon Trail card, right? That falls under that program. So when you have upsets in the system in place, the money is dissolving as it goes in. It's not good because it probably could operate on a third less. Each of those streams.
I agree. Troy, where's your mind at?
I agree. A third less, right? I mean, this excessive spending all the way around. I am still a proponent of the privatization. Put the burden on the individual citizen to figure out their life. That includes feeding themselves, where to live, work, all of that. Securing your retirement, your future, that type of deal. Not being totally dependent upon Social Security.
I guess
Social Security is a floor. You're never going to be, free with Social Security. It's always a minimum. But
Troy, I think the pushback you would get, Troy, is two things. One is kind of what we've been talking about. It's like, what about the people in need? Number two is, what about us? We've paid in hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars into Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. We never get that benefit if we wipe out that program. Or people who are in their retirement or nearing their retirement. Like, think about all of our parents here, right? Like, they've all put in hundreds of thousands of dollars into Social Security. And do we just say, poof, it's gone.
Yeah,
Too bad, so sad.
I'd give some pushback. I've paid into it for 27 years.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, Troy, what would you say about that?
No, I get that. I understand that. You would have to have an alternative. And I'm not saying abolish the program. I'm saying put more onus on the individual citizen to to take care of that means schools, right? Like, Dan, your kids, from where I understand, were all homeschooled, right? That's not public
Well,
education.
we sent Ben to private school for a couple years.
Again, private school, it's not public school.
Right,
And I
because I
feel like
don't like the public school in that town.
And even with
communities are pretty
school,
bad.
here's the crazy thing, and I'm not trying to contradict you, Troy, but schools are usually paid for locally at the county, state level. They're barely part of our funding,
At the federal level. Yeah, and I get that.
Right.
That's why you see different performance statuses data amongst different states. Some states do better, some states do worse, right? Because it is local. Excess funding doesn't always make it, though.
To that point, Brad, there is federal funding that goes to these schools. If they
It is, yeah.
I know that
it's not as big with the state and federal, or state.
If you look into it, the federal funding for like Mills versus the county school, Mills has amazing computers for their kids.
Yeah.
The county school doesn't. Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying
that
is
all comes out of the federal budget.
It's a sliver of what we're paying for compared to all the other things we've talked about. Like the top 5 things: Social Security, interest, health, national defense,
yes, I
income,
agree.
security.
Yeah,
it's a sliver. If you wiped out 100% of government spending on education at the federal level, no one would notice. Our debt would still go up faster than it would go down.
That's
Troy,
still spending more than what you're bringing in. And I think going back to that national debt, though, it's not so much paying down the debt. They need to balance the budget, and Trump got in and reduced the size of the government a little bit, but then the next president is probably going to increase the amount of government jobs there are. It's a back and forth. It's the excessive spending on a lot of things, like Social Security. You're right. There are people who need it, but there's also a lot of people who are probably taking advantage of it, and the fraud. So that needs to be reined in, like the Leering centers in Minneapolis, right? That needs to be reined in.
But, what sliver out of the budget was that? How much money was that?
I really don't know. It could add up if you attack all fraud. It could lead to
that
large
kind
amount.
of goes to both your points, and Dan, that goes to your point that fraud isn't on the budget necessarily, right? Like, so how much, like, maybe it's accounted as something, maybe it's thrown under Social Security, but how much of that Social Security or whatever it is from fraud, right? So it's just we don't know. We don't know. All right, I want to show I'm going to show something on the screen for our viewers, and let me do a favor and just screenshot this for you guys so you guys can see it. We're going to look at February of 2025, and I'm going to throw it in chat for you guys, but I'm just going to show it on the screen for our viewers, and compare that to March of 2026. So about a year. So if you look at, let me hit send for you guys to look at. If you look at February, our total recipients, so essentially our income was $296 billion in February of last year. Our outgoing money, our expenditures, was $603 billion. Now you compare that to March of this year. On the right side of your screen for our viewers, your income was your recipients was 385 billion. That's your income. Your outgoing, your expenditures, was 549 billion. We see a debt change of around $150 billion total in a good way.
Yeah.
So
and
I'm not going to.
We've had 100 and something billion less this year compared to last year, right?
Right. So here's what I want. I'm going to make a proposal and say a couple things. If we continue this trend, we could be positive eventually. The second screenshot I put in chat was for March, just in case you guys needed to see it. But if we continue this trend, it's not just, and I don't want people, I know what people are thinking. Envy is a powerful emotion. You see someone with a big house, or you hear the words $1 million, stocks, $1 billion, emotions start firing. It's called envy. It's jealousy, essentially, for what someone else has. And if anyone has read their Bible, it's one of the 10 commandments not to be envious, you know? But it happens. It's one of the most powerful tools that any politician could have. So always you're going to think, well, the rich need to pay more. The rich need to pay more. Here's the thing. If you think that way, you're probably poor. And B, you're probably not poor because of the rich. You're poor because of your own decisions, right?
Or you're trying to manipulate someone that is, or that doesn't understand.
Yes. And every like few days or months, you'll see from the Democratic Party, it says tax the rich, or they'll wear a dress that says tax the rich. Well, guess what? The rich
or $10,000.
Yeah, $10,000 dress.
Yes.
More than most people have spent on dresses up till their wedding day.
I don't think I've ever spent that much on clothes at all.
I've never spent $10,000 on a dress.
Yeah, right. Sorry, Bradley. Finish your
No,
comment.
You're good. My point is that until we take care of ourselves, until you think about yourself, this will continue to happen. If you look at last year versus this year, more money is coming into the government and less money is being spent. You can look at it a few different ways. You can look at it and say tariffs helped a little bit. You can look at it and say the economy is stronger now, even though gas prices are up, we're at war, or we're not at war with Iran. The economy's better now, so we're paying more in taxes because we have more money. Not because tax rates went up, because we have more money. We're spending less money. It's still a huge problem, but we're spending less money. If you make the economy stronger, if you get us to work, and this was kind of going back to what you were saying, Troy, with privatizing things. Let us work, you know? And as small business owners, we've all felt the issues with more and more requirements on what we have to do, regulations, all that with our businesses. The harder it is, the less money we make. The less money we make, the less money we give to the government.
And it encourages them to go to a more competitive state, the businesses and the people.
It does, but to that point, right, the EPA became about a thing. Like, there are some rivers that you do not want to get in. As a person.
What?
There are rivers and things that you as a person do not want to put yourself into. Not revenue. I'm talking like nature. I'm talking about how it's hard to do business because there's some of these regulations in place. Those regulations are in place because places were dumping toxic waste into a river that was then killing populations of people.
Sure.
Right? And I fight this all the time. I'm like, well, that's dumb. Why can't you do that? Well, it's because somebody ruined it for everybody else somewhere.
Right.
That's always how it goes, right? 1% of the problem creates, the problem for a lot of people, or a large problem for a lot of people.
Here's the thing, though. If there's a higher regulation or a more difficult roadblock, let's say us as gun oil producers, or let's say we're in the world of producing guns, gun oils, whatever, shooting supplies, outdoor stuff. We're small businessmen. If we can't do it, then essentially these regulations will make it harder for us, less likely to stay in business, and it will make it easier for Bass Pro or Academy Sports or whomever, right? Shields. Essentially, every time you add in regulation, you add in taxes, your emotions fire because you're like, yeah, tax the rich. All you're doing is making it harder for the poor guy to get rich. But the richer stay rich. So when you think that, you're not actually helping anything. You're actually making it worse for the small guy.
you like to go outside and you like to drive around and see mountains and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
The three of us enjoy being outside, but if we don't do something about that, people will just crap everywhere, quite literally, you know?
Okay.
So you have to do something, right? It's like we have speed limits, but here in Florida, they're more of like a suggestion. Um,
I see what you're saying, and I think I think we're thinking of it a little differently. I'm not just talking about dumping toxic wastes into,
but that's how this
into the
starts,
river.
though. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
That's how those regulations start, right?
Right.
Is because someone's like, yeah, it's fine. I'll just put this here. Nobody's using it. It's fine.
But here's the thing. In the US, which is, let's say, more free than India or China, right? We're some of the best at it. And we're freer than India and China. Like the rivers in China, they're better today than they were 10 years ago.
They're
But
still garbage. It's still
yeah,
more
they're still
garbage than
garbage.
anything.
But they're straight communism. They have very
Yeah.
little freedoms,
Yeah.
and they have, like, it's garbage to live there.
Yeah.
Like, don't kill us, China party, communist party. We're just talking here. But what my point is, like, our regulations are better here, but also we're freer here, and we're richer here. It's like it's this cycle. I don't think it's. My point is, when you make these tougher regulations for everyone, you make
I
it
agree.
harder for the people who can't afford to fix it, and easier for the other people to eat up that
That's
competition.
Yeah,
that's
I
moving up.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
All
But
right.
there's people that, they didn't know that methanol was bad for them. So they didn't wear gloves and they didn't store right. And then they died. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
another thing
Okay.
people forget is the government should care about you since a third of our, maybe even half of our income stream is income tax, right? The government really should focus on keeping people alive longer so they can pay more taxes.
Sure.
Well, they've talked about increasing the retirement age to 67 or 67 and a
Yeah,
half.
I don't.
They've dropped it in Russia. It is now older than the average wage of Russia. You are expected to die before you retire in Russia if you don't get killed in a war first.
Let's just go back to that overall number, because 39 trillion, and I'm going to break down this number. For anyone who's curious, you can go to usdebtclock.org, and it gives us like a running number. So I know I've said $39 trillion is our US debt, but it's actually 39,146 billion. And
39.1.
every maybe 2 to 3 seconds, it goes up around $100,000 in debt. So let's just think about that debt. The debt per citizen is 113, almost 114K. Troy, what was your question?
So what's the percentage of the debt to GDP then?
Percentage, U.S. federal debt is 124.88%.
So, okay, so we're spending 124% of the income, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
That no, obviously you're spending more than what you're earning, but that percentage is arguably more vital than the total dollar amount. There are some other countries, you brought up China, like I've heard some reports that their debt to GDP ratio is over 200%.
It's actually on that website that we talked about. I'll tell you what China's is.
Lifetime theft. Is that the one, Dan?
Yes.
Look that up. When you find it, let us know. But to break down a couple more... Sorry, go ahead, Troy.
No, yeah, you're fine.
The debt per taxpayer is $357,000. So for every single U.S. taxpayer, we each, in theory, owe $357,000 in debt.
That's a lot more than what I really owe.
Yeah, right. The biggest budget items, almost $2 trillion in Medicare, Medicaid. Social Security is $1.6 trillion. Defense is under $1 trillion. The interest on debt is over $1 trillion. I think what you just have to do is look at this and say, we have a spending problem in the United States. Don't even think about the income. It's all about spending. Go back to that family that has a car and a maid and a personal shopper and a personal cook.
They spend
They're
every
spending
penny,
too much money.
every penny they earn.
Yeah. And every penny they
Did
earn,
you say
plus they put
personal
stuff.
shopper?
Yeah. Do you know what a personal shopper is?
No.
A personal shopper is someone, there's multiple things. Someone who goes out and goes shopping for groceries for you, which in theory, that would be awesome. A lot of people don't like grocery shopping, or they go like find your stuff for you, like whether it's your furniture or your clothes or whatever. But there are personal shoppers. Many wealthy people don't go get their own groceries. You know, that for us, that doesn't make sense. Like we go get our groceries once a week, twice a week, whatever. But some rich people never go, which is fine if they have the money, right?
If they could afford it, why not, right?
If you can afford it, why not?
They left it up to their own volition to make that reality for themselves.
But here's the thing. We also owe money to China, you know, to other countries, to our citizens, you know.
So
Troy?
That is true, but China also owes us money as well. That's not a one-way street. It goes, hold on. Hey, baby. Because
So the
hold on.
the debt percentage. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So it's a two-way street, right? And there's talk about paying it off, but if we try to pay off all the money that we owe to China, that could lead to some serious repercussions too at the global stage, right?
What
And
would that do at the
goes
global
both ways.
stage? If we paid our China debt, what would that do on the global stage?
Oh my goodness.
So here's something I could think about is if we paid off our debt to China, I think that in theory you would have like the relations wouldn't be as good. I would still say pay it off regardless.
It would take the government bond market, the bonds market, right? The treasury market. It could skyrocket interest rates, which could slow down home purchasing.
That's a good point.
You know, which would destroy capital movement, which money is a means of exchange. It's designed to exchange hands. And if that seized, then it'll affect job creation, job growth, retaining jobs. Yeah. So it could be a massive impact.
From a financial standpoint, you make a good point, Troy. I mean, but like, I think you could just ignore China and just stop taking money from China, you know? Like if we didn't have to borrow money from China, we could slowly improve this without just paying off all our Chinese debt. So maybe that goes back to our question at the beginning, would you pay off the $39 trillion in debt like that, you know?
So, and talking about the Chinese debt, the percentage of it, how much debt do they actually own? U.S. debt do they actually own? Japan owns more than China, but the foreign amount is, the government owes the U.S. citizens more money than they owe to foreign countries, is what I'm saying.
Dan,
so we could
Dan,
pay off China, but it's a small amount.
Did you have some numbers?
I do. So China's debt to GDP is 91%.
Is it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ours is it's according to that website, ours is 134%.
Okay.
And Japan's is 259%.
Japan's real bad.
Japan has had some dollar or what is it, yen?
Yen.
Japan. They've had some yen issues over the last
year
or two.
They're the second. They're right behind Lebanon, which is 333%.
That's pretty crazy. I think what helps the U.S. is that our GDP is so high. Like we are so well off as Americans that it helps bring that number down. You know, like the U.S., the poorest people in the U.S. are middle class and poor countries, you know? Like we are well off. I know you don't, not everyone thinks it, but we're really well off
Well, they
here.
don't like
So
to
that really
acknowledge
helps
that
that.
because that doesn't keep people irrationally
Yeah.
thinking in a fear mindset. When you tell, you know, like when a kid hurts themselves and they scrape their knee, right? It hurts, right?
Yeah.
It hurts. But are you going to lose your leg?
Right.
You're not losing your leg. You've scraped your knee. Let's clean it. It's going to hurt a little more to clean it, right? You got to get the debris out of there. Maybe you have to scrub it a little bit, right?
Sure.
And that hurts. And then you have people that would say, oh man, you're destroying your child emotionally because you're not holding them and making sure their emotions are okay. You're just taking care of their knee. They're going to hate you forever, right? Well, you are caring for them by cleaning their knee so it doesn't get infected. And then they, in fact, don't lose their leg.
Yeah,
you know?
sure.
But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the emotions of spending money versus the reality of spending money. And that's where I think the privatization comes in with a hitch, right? Because if you look at it like this,
I'll talk to you more when I'm done.
our GDP, right? What we make, if you look at the government like your personal finances, right?
Sure.
And you continue to spend more than you're making, someday somebody's gonna, you'll go bankrupt eventually.
Yeah.
Or someone will overthrow your government, or cash, or pay.
Yeah.
Or somebody else that doesn't have debt buys you.
Yeah.
Right? Like us, we'll say the S word, buys your country like a slave. And then they take all your GDP, right? And they annihilate you.
I like your last thoughts here, and we're going to wrap it up, Dan. And I think that the consequences of this debt is terrifying. I will say that the consequences of our individual emotions in envy is what's causing this. Along with poorly acting politicians, but it's not just them, it's us too. It's us citizens, it's our mindset. If you say the words like the rich need to pay their fair share, or like oh, they got away with something, more corporate greed, I get those things. But that just means you're like, tax the rich, you're envious, you're causing this issue because we're not willing, like the better we all do together, the more money we pay towards our debt, but the less we have to pay to make our Social Security payments, etc. Those are my final thoughts. Troy, what about you?
That tax the rich statement I always find funny because you hear those politicians, tax the rich pay for their fair share, right? They completely ignore the homeless and the drug addicts that pay 0%, $0, right, to their taxes, which you said earlier on this podcast that the rich pay, what was it, 40% of the
top 1% pay 40, top 10% pay 75-ish.
So there you go, 75% by the top 10 wealthiest people, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's
how much more should they pay?
But seriously, right? Yet they ignore the homeless people and give them a reason to continue doing nothing. Right? Whereas the rich, they're not just paying the taxes, they're creating our jobs. They're creating the products you consume, right? Everything in your house, everything you eat and drink and watch and touch and feel and drive, right? They're creating all of that. Yeah, they're saying tax. And so New York City is learning that in real time. All of those wealthy people are now leaving New York City, leaving behind the rats and the piles of trash.
Yeah. Well, we're out of time. Dan, give us like 30 seconds because it's going to cut off on us.
I'm a big proponent of the flat tax. Everybody pays their equal share amount. I'm a huge proponent
regardless
of that, right?
Of how much you earn.
Because just like in the Bible, the lady only had, two, we'll call them pennies. But that was all she had, and she gave it, right? So if I give 10%, let's say I make 80,000 a year, so I pay 10% of that annually, right?
Yeah.
That's the same amount as if I make 8 million a year and I pay 10% of that annually. right?
Yeah.
That's what's fair. Not me. They are paying more than their fair share.
Yeah.
Currently.
I agree. That's it. We're out of time. We didn't get to our discussion around aliens today. I'm sorry. We are Sasquatch Gun Oil. Go to sasquatchgunoil.org to get your oil today. Look at your screen right there. Best for cleaning, lubrication, anything for your guns. That's all we got. I hope you enjoyed our time. Adios.